Hey guys, been asked lots of questions, all relating to the same thing, which is the cost of the house, but all in different ways. Couple very impolite, but mostly just curiosity. You know, people want to know what it costs to build here in Russia. Yeah, simple answer is it's an impossible question to answer. There are so many variables. I do not know what the current cost would be. So that's the first thing. I could sit here and tell you what we spent, but it's completely irrelevant. It wouldn't be relevant to anybody other than our next door neighbour who bought their house at the same time. Otherwise, it's a pointless conversation. Again, because there's so many variables. It's very much region specific here in Russia. In the UK, yeah, house prices do change from one end of the country to the other, but in the towns, they're very similar. You get a good area in a particular town, all prices will be dearer, but around the rest of it, they're generally around the same sort of cost. Here in Russia, you can have a development next to another development and two completely different costs, purely because one development might be a very basic development with no mains utilities, and the other one might be what we call the top of the range development, which will have all utilities, tarmac roads, everything. So there are so many variables beyond that as well, but that's just the start. Also, it varies from developer to developer, and that's again region specific. You have to remember just how big Russia is. It is immense. I mean, our region alone is 77,000 square kilometres. To put that in perspective, we went out for a drive the other day, and we drove all day. We were just out driving around. Didn't go through the same place twice. We just did a big sort of loop around just to have a look. If I did that in the UK, I would probably go through anywhere between 6 and 10 counties. Here, I didn't leave our region, and everything's a region here, but if you liken it to the UK county, then that, you know, you'll understand that a region is effectively a UK county, but on a much, much, much bigger scale. So, yes, go out driving all day and never leave your county. Can you imagine that? And that's just one region. I don't know how many there are, 80 or 90 regions in Russia. The place is immense. So you can have so much variation in cost within your region, within your town, let alone across the country. The other thing for us is that we bought this house in October 21, and the world was a different place then. Russia wasn't the big bad boogeyman that Western media now portrays it as. It was a holiday destination for a lot of Westerners, and certainly the town that we're very near to, Anapa, is a holiday resort. So costs then are completely different to costs now. There have been, for example, increases on land, 2 price increases this year alone. So to give you a cost of what it cost us to build this house, I don't see what relevance it would be to you, your life, other than if somebody just wanted to be nosy. How much did that cost? Do some research, you can find that answer. I'm not going to give it to you. Then you can factor in that this house, although we picked from a catalogue, a standard build, there's nothing standard about our house. Now, the developer allows you to change whatever you want, but at a cost. Everything has a cost. And whilst compared to the UK that's very cheap, there's still a cost. So our house is specific to us. So the cost is the cost. And unless you were going to build an identical house on an identical piece of land in an identical development with the same developer, you get my point. It's just irrelevant. It's a pointless question to try and answer. It's probably easier to say that our house at current value would be, and this is a guess, again, because prices are increasing and we haven't had our house valued because it's our house, we don't need to. But I would say somewhere between 15 and 20 million. Rubles, of course, not pounds, I wish. What bearing that has on you thinking to move to a different part of Russia and what the cost would be, I have no idea. I think it pretty much tells you nothing because of the reasons I've already outlined. But the big costs, or the bigger costs, I can tell you for us, were the garage. That was a big cost because you're effectively building another building on the side of your house, so you have to allow for that. But again, that's down to specification. Build a small garage, doesn't cost so much. The swimming pool, it's a big cost. But again, what tiles do you have? What kind of pool design do you have? What liner? Is it lined? Is it just concrete? How big is it? How deep is it? Whether it's a freshwater pool, whether it's a saltwater pool, have you got a computer controlling the chemicals? You need to speak to a pool guy. In our area, I would thoroughly recommend Paradise Pools. The guy is so helpful. Literally, nothing was too much trouble. So I would thoroughly recommend Paradise Pools in Anapa if you're looking for a pool in this area. There you go. There you go, Mikhail. Hope the check is in the post for me. The other big cost that we had was the printed concrete around the property. Most people do block, what we call block paving in the UK. That's everywhere. It's so common out here. And they do it a different way as well from what I've seen. I've seen how they do it in the UK. And they do it differently here. They do it all on wet sand. Or certainly what I've seen. But I've seen them literally put the sand down and then level it with water. So the whole thing just finds its natural level because of the water. And then the blocks go on it. And it seems to work just fine. Whether it's a specific type of sand that they use, I have no idea. I'm not a block paver, so please don't pull me apart on that. But it's done a different way. In the UK, it's done dry, from what I've seen. But you can, you don't have to have block paving around your house. You can have just the concrete base and paint it. But we went with printed concrete. We didn't want blocks. I like to do things differently. I don't want to build the same house as everybody else. And that's a big thing again in Russia as well. And that's what I love about Russia. It's very eclectic. Even on our development, which is made by one developer with one colour scheme, for example, and one style of house, no two houses here are the same. Even ones when at first glance you look at and go, well, that's the same as that one. They're not. They're all different. And this is probably as close to getting houses that are the same as you're going to get. But you go into the towns and cities, and no two houses, you can literally have like a medieval castle theme next to a very contemporary glass-fronted building. There is just so much variety, and that's what I love. It's so interesting. You can walk around the streets of your neighbourhood, and every house is different. Every property is different. The fencings are different. The house style is different. The colours are different. The way they've done their gardens is different. It's brilliant. It is so nice. It's so refreshing to see some people making choices and not just being sheep. Not just going, oh, this is what I must buy on this estate, and there are 500 houses that are all the same. Yeah, no, you don't find that here. Well, certainly, again, this is always my opinion, my experience. In this region, you don't find it. Everything's different. So, going back to the original point, without sounding rude, I don't want to be rude. I really want to be as helpful as I can to anybody. But giving specific costs on our house has no relevance to you. It's no relevance in the world today because our house was bought and built in October 21, or started in October 21. So what I would suggest is if you want to know how much it's going to cost you to build in Russia, you really need to break that question down into sections. The first thing you need to establish is where. That's the most important thing. Because if you don't do that, you're never going to get an accurate idea of cost. So you're going to have to start with where. If you've never been to Russia, you're going to need to do some homework. You've got to decide what climate you want to live in for a start, because that's how big the country is. You've got every climate that you can find on Earth pretty much here in Russia. It isn't all snow and bears. You must understand that the traditional view of Russia, which is just snow and it's all cold, and that's all I got when I was coming to Russia. Everybody, oh, what are you moving there for? It's cold. No. No. So you need to do your homework. You need to have a look at regions. You need to decide the climate you want to live in. Our climate here, I would say the winters are very, very similar to the UK, but the summers are much more like south of France, Gran Canaria, Tenerife, that kind of thing. Gran Canaria, I found, always had like a constant breeze, and that's very similar to where we are. But that might not be for you. You might want snow. You might want to be a snowboarder and have winter sports a lot more. So there are regions, I think there are probably regions here in Russia where it's just permanent snow. I don't think, I know. So it really depends the climate that you want. So work that out first. Then that will narrow what regions you can look at. That will narrow it down. Then you're going to start looking at, in that region, what are the expensive areas? What are the amenities? What's important to you? Have you got children? Do they need to go to the school? Doctors, petrol stations. Remember, Russia is just a huge gas station masquerading as a country. No, it's not. But there are petrol stations everywhere. But you need to work out what you're actually looking for specifically. Post offices, doctors, shops. Our little village has got 10 supermarkets in. Handyman shops, several. Fish shops, meat shops, butchers, blah, 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 blah. So that's the next thing you need to look at. What are you looking for specifically? Once you've narrowed that down, that will narrow down your towns. That will give you options in towns. Then you need to start looking at what the prices are of the developments in those regions. And then you can start looking at developers, or, hand in hand. And again, as I said earlier, it really depends on how much you want to spend on the land. Do you want to be on a development that is all built and done for you and has got everything, tarmac roads, gas and all the rest of it? Or do you want free water? Do you want to have a well? We've got a well. Not something that's very common in the UK, but out here, very common. You pay a company, they drill a borehole down into the water table, and you draw water out of the ground. And that costs you nothing other than the hole to start with. You've got, a pump may fail and you might need to replace the pump, but effectively, it's not really a thing in the UK. It is more common in America. I've seen a lot of videos in America of people using wells and having pumps. And I hadn't come across it until I came here, but we've got a well. We have pump water, and the water that comes out of the ground, we've had tested in a laboratory. You get a full report on the quality of the water. Our water is lovely, but it is high in calcium. So you can drink it straight out of the ground. It's lovely. You notice the difference when you have a shower, I'll tell you that. But then, do you fit a water filtration system to change the balance of the water? Yada, yada, yada. Again, more common. Everybody filters their water here. Just, why wouldn't you? Why would you drink water that's full of chemicals if you don't need to? But I digress. You can then narrow it down, but you've got to go through this journey. You have to decide first what kind of climate you want. Then look at the regions that provide that climate. Then what kind of amenities that you want. Then you can look at the towns within those regions. Then what kind of development are you looking for? Are you looking for something in the middle of a forest, or are you looking, to be in the city, or, on the main road? What's your choice? And then that's the only way you can narrow it down. And then you're going to start looking at developers or independent builders, and you narrow it down that way. So to get back to the original point of this video, there's no point in me telling you what this house costs to build. It is not going to have any relevance to you at all. None. Zero. And as I've said, the costs in 2021 are different to the costs today, as I'm sure you know, wherever you're watching. If you're watching from the UK, has anything gone up since 2021? So there we go. Sorry it's not more concise and not more accurate. But if somebody wants to know a specific, ask me a specific question. If you ask me a very broad question, unfortunately, I'm probably going to give you a broad answer. And it might give you more questions than you started with. But, you know, how much would it cost for 50 square metres of printed concrete? It's a more specific question. To answer that, I would just put you onto a concrete guy, probably. But you understand, you get the point. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. I don't know, but hopefully it explains why it isn't a simple question to answer. You know, how much is the house? A couple of people have said, you know, would you sell your house? Sometimes I think everything in life has a price, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I think, no. I don't think we would ever sell this house because I don't think anybody would pay enough money for it for us to go, we'd be stupid not to. So would we sell this house for market value? Not a chance. No chance. We made it too specific to us. We made too many changes. And to find somebody that came in and had exactly the same taste and wanted it exactly the same, it's highly unlikely that would happen. But even if you did, they're not going to want to pay anything more than market price, and we wouldn't sell it for market price. So, simple answer is, would we sell it? No. But if you are out there and you're a multi-millionaire and you want to be completely stupid, I'll always listen. Thanks for watching.